Good morning and welcome to my garden. The syntropic rows need to be diverse for they fulfill many purposes. This has become a jungle of perennial flowers and the bees have loved it, and I'm sure lots of insects have come to live in there. That's one of the benefits, that's one of the roles of your syntropics row. All the insects and all the animals live in there. These flowers have been very welcomed by the neighbourhood bees, and they've provided much pleasure to us humans too. Herbs can do a good job of providing biomass. This Thai basil grows very fast and produces a lot of leaf matter, and I could be chopping that down fairly regularly. I've planted a lot of herbs to be used as chop and drop. Brassicas can be planted in the gaps, and they have kept cover here where my other chop and drop plants have taken a long time to grow. One day this camellia will be big enough to provide good biomass for me to drop on my row. But in the meantime, these brassicas and the weeds are also helping to create biomass. Now, contour 4, I'm starting this a little bit differently. Firstly, by not mowing it. So the grasses that were here are going to become part of my chop and drop. They're part of the plants that are putting carbon in the soil and infiltrating the water that runs down this slope. I'm not going to have vegetables on this row. I'm just going to have fruit trees and syntropics row. I've planted in there some ground covers like sweet potato. I've also planted in a bunch of melons. I've also planted pigeon pea, sunflowers, and I've planted a cover crop along here. And some of them are coming up. We haven't had reliable rain this year. Generally, between October and March are our heavy rainfall seasons, and we've had very little. It's meant that I've not had success with having cover crops grow. I'm thinking of planting a whole line of acacias along here, all different varieties. And I guess that way it'll help me see which ones grow better in my conditions here. Acacias are very fast growers, so I would expect them to produce a lot of biomass for this row. I haven't planted a lot of acacias in my garden because they attract so many ants, and that's been very unpleasant when I've been working my garden. This is not going to be a vegetable garden. I won't be working this as often, so I don't need to worry about that. I've not followed the usual syntropics advice in terms of what to plant in my syntropic rows. I've tended to plant whatever I had, whatever was available, whatever was affordable at the local nurseries and the local land care service. And that's meant I've ended up with some interesting things in my rows. For example, they're not really chop and drop plants, but maybe they are. The aloe and the agave have been two plants that I've planted a lot of in this garden. I'm doing an experiment with a lot of succulents. That means I'm even planting these low-growing succulents. Some of these rows have some very unusual plants in it. For example, I spread brassicas all along here. I had an abundance of brassica seeds, and so some I just spread covering all the ground that was bare. I had a lot of capsicum seeds, and so I was planting all my capsicum seeds in my syntropic row. I don't need that many capsicum plants, but with all those seeds, I wasn't going to let them go to waste and throw them out. If I'm going to let my syntropic plants grow for longer through the season, then it would pay for me to plant some beans in my syntropics row and allow the beans to climb my chop and drop plants, use them as a trellis, and then they could produce beans for me in that space. They're all plants and they're all contributing to putting organic matter back into the soil. I've decided some of my big perennials can go in the chop and drop row. For example, my yacon. This cranberry hibiscus has leaves that fit very well into a mixed leaf salad. You pick the young leaves. Likewise, pigeon pea. I use these small leaves in my salads as well. The small leaves of sweet potato can also be eaten in salads. And some of these perennials, like Thai basil, they produce a lot of leaf, and the more I prune it, the more leaf they produce. perhaps I'd be able to fulfill more of the functions of a syntropic row if I was to plant a greater diversity of plants in my syntropic row. At the moment, the budget is what's keeping me from planting everything that I'd like to plant in my syntropics row. So for now, I'm planting what I have the seeds for and what is free and cheaply available. And sometimes that's the best you can do. Plant what you have and be thankful that each plant fulfills a different function. I do need to prune the vetiver and arrowroot along here to allow the citrus to get sufficient sunlight. And especially in winter, I need to take that down so that the citrus trees can have their full sun. This poinciana is an example of a plant that ended up in my chop and drop row because of where I put the garden bed. Initially, I just let it keep growing. However, this one was very large and it threw a lot of shade onto this bed, which had potatoes on it at the time. And because it was getting so much shade, I had an exceedingly disappointing harvest of potatoes. So I'm letting it grow during summer when it can provide shade for the sweet potato. But as soon as the sun moves around from south of east to north of east, as soon as it looks like it's about to throw shade onto another row, I'll be taking it down. And so through winter, it'll largely be just a stump. And then it can grow back again in summer and give shade when it's super hot here in southeast Queensland in our subtropical temperatures. So this garden bed here has become rather overgrown while I've been away and out of the garden. And there have been a lot of weeds that have come up between the asparagus and bananas. In Syntropics, they often talk about humans taking the place of animals, the way animals graze when they move as a mob and trample what they don't eat, does a reset for the environment and allows it to be renewed. I've come along and been the disturbance by just snapping things, by just standing on them, pushing them over with my feet. Along the back here, I've pulled out some of the grass, but these larger weeds, I've just trampled them, just pushed them down. These thistles, just push them down. They're still giving coverage to the ground. They still have their roots in the ground. That will also keep allowing sunlight to the plants that I want to preserve. These syntropic rows that we have here have a lot of value and many purposes. And as I learn to keep them well vegetated and let them grow, and as I learn the proper times to prune them, they're becoming very useful to me in many ways.